I am in Ireland, a bit further than I'd usually go to work on a car. We're working on one of these Figaros, not this one. We're working on one that's part way through a paint job. Just while I'm here, I'm just going to do some of the mechanical work and servicing on it, just keep it up to scratch. Very nice cars. My nice Jeep. It's not on the road at the moment. One day it will be. Gorgeous thing. I love that car. Land Cruiser also has some problems with the gearbox light being on, but we're not here for them. We are here for this old girl. Since I'm going to be doing a full service on this, I'm looking over the whole car. The first thing that I'm going to do before I start looking it over is I'm going to jack up all four wheels off the ground. And now we've got the car up off the ground. All four wheels nicely supported. I've supported the two front on the frame of the car, and I've done the two back on the pinch welds. Just make sure when you're jacking up on an older car or any car that's known to rust, especially classic cars, make sure before you place your jack as well, just give everything a good tap and make sure it's solid metal, because the last thing that you want to do is put your jack through the floor and make a mess. Welcome to the engine bay of the Nissan Figaro. You can see just over here I've got the radiator. We'll have to drain out the coolant in a minute, considering we're doing the Cambelt. We're also going to take off the rocker arm cover. Have a look in there. Make sure everything is as it should be. We're going to be changing the oil, obviously changing the coolant, and can't really think of a great deal else we're going to be doing to this. It's essentially just going to be a Cambelt change and a full service and check. So why don't we just get straight into doing the Cambelt. Step one is just going to be to isolate the battery. Thankfully this has got a screw on type one, so we can actually just leave the battery in place and just remove that, set that to one side. First thing that I'm going to remove from this car is going to be the alternator down here. I'm going to start with these, lubing everything up. There's also an adjuster mechanism down the bottom there. I don't think we have to take the alternator off, it's not really in the way, but we'll just try and get it moved so we can get this belt off. This belt here needs to come off. These top two bolts are 17mm. Just break those loose. There we go, there's one. Do the same on the other side. There we go. And then once they're broken loose, we'll just leave them in place. We don't want to remove them completely, but we do want them to be loose so they don't stop the alternator itself from moving into position. So these have manual adjusters. A lot of more modern cars that you'll see in some of my other videos all have automatic tensioners, where basically once you release it, it just tensions it itself. This is a manually set tensioner, so what we need to do is undo the bolt, and then the alternator should be able to swing back. See how it's curved, so it can swing upwards or downwards. There we go. One belt down, two more to go. The road bolts are 21mm. Yeah, no faffing about. Oh, the brakes look crusty.
Yeah, lucky use.
Now if anything's going to break, it's going to be something like this, I think. There's one. 2. Get number 3. Ah, it's like an 8mm or something, it's not a 10. Okay, I need to go and grab a couple of tools anyway. There's a little Phillips head in the middle here of these clips, and you just need to wind them out. Do it gently, and then once it's wound out, clip should come free. I think that is free now. If they break, they break. They've got to come out. There we go. Managed to get that one out without breaking it. You can see it catches on the inside, it spreads, and that's how they work. So just at the front here is what I was talking about. There's a little 8mm holding it on, or at least it's an 8mm on mine. Bolt could have been replaced in the past, I suppose. There we go. The whole thing is out of the way, and we can see here to our 2 belts left over. So if I take you just behind the pulley, you can see there's a bolt head just there at the bottom, and then this threaded bar is what moves the pulley up and down to tension or detension it, and we want to detension it. Okay, so the bolt on the bottom here is a 12mm. Let me just find it. There we go. Wind that in. And we should be able to retrieve the belt. It might be like stuck on there. There we go. Happens with like really old belts, they get stuck to the pulley. There we go. Okay, that one there's off. This is the one that we pulled off from earlier as well. So just need to get to this 14mm at the back here. I'd say so far this has been the toughest one. Toughest bolt yet. Now that that's broken loose a little bit, we should be able to push the pump down and then pull the belt off. So we're just about to take off one of the engine mounts now that we've got all the belts off. And then let's start that process by just taking the weight of the engine. Like so, there we go. As soon as the engine just moves up slightly, we're there. So this is quite the rig here. I've just got my gun set up. I'll show you the bolt in a second on the engine mount. So we've got 2 bolts on top, one here, and we've got one just down the side here where my finger is. All 14mm will need to come out. Okay, had like a little chat there with my dad while I was filming, so I missed a couple of bits, but basically all I did was I just unbolted the engine mount. Nothing major. Now I'm just taking out these 10mm that are the timing cover bolts. Oops. Whoa.
taken out these 3 12s that hold on this engine mount to the side of the head. Once that comes out, you do need to take this off, otherwise you won't be able to get the Cambelt upper cover off. That's off. So I'm set that to one side. I'm going to put the bolts back with them as well, but it does look like there's a seal at the top here, which has perished. So it looks like we'll have to get a new oil seal for this rocker cover as well while we're in here. Otherwise it's just going to drip oil all over the new Cambelt, and then that will need changing as well. I just want to get a look at the timing mark down the bottom. It's a bit oily down there, so I'm just going to try and clean that up a bit. Now that we have the upper timing cover off and the engine mount, we need to remove, you only need to remove one of the spark plugs if you're not changing them. You just need to move the one to top dead center. I'm replacing the spark plugs at the same time, so I'm going to remove all of them, which means I'm also going to remove this turbocharger hose as well. Recommend getting a thin wall spark plug socket. It's a 21mm, but you can see these deep grooves here. There's a head bolt next to the spark plug, and this one here just so happened to get wedged onto the head bolt. There's a washer on the side of it, so that took me about 20 minutes to get this socket out. And I think I broke the spark plug on the inside in the process. But that's no problem, we are replacing them, but if you weren't replacing them because your spark plugs aren't due yet and you're just doing the timing belt, that's something to be aware of. Thin wall socket, and if you don't have one, maybe just have some spare spark plugs on hand just in case. So on the top cam you can see there's a little circle there, and you want the tooth from the circle to line up with this small notch up here in the cylinder head. And that is how you know that it's in time. And then once that's done, we need to remove the crank pulley. There we go. Then we'll take off the crank pulley as well. There's some loose bits on there. Aha! It's like a little washer behind here, so don't lose that. I'm just going to get a magnet to fish that out, I think. Right, now we're going to take off the lower timing cover. So there's just 2 more 10mm bolts. Holding on the lower timing cover. One of these is a little angle gauge for the crank. It's just a bolt, and then there we go. Have the lower crank pulley off. Can now take off this washer, keep this safe, and then that is it. Now we're just ready to time it up again, make sure our marks are still right, and then we'll just be removing the belt and fitting the new one. Just need to put the crank bolt back in so I can spin over the engine. Putting my one back on with the rather large washer so don't push on the crank. So first things first, I want to remove the tension off of the tensioner, which in this car I'm hoping will not be too difficult. Tensioner is the middle pulley. So the radiator drain is just here. So if you want to crack that loose, I forgot to film this. It just comes out by hand. I was busy talking to Dad, so that was kind of a fail. There you go, and then it will just drain out, and you want to let it drain until it's just a steady drip. and then once that's done, just put the plug back in. So now that we've removed the tensioner, we're going to remove the water pump next. There's 4 bolts, I think, one here, and just there. So you need to keep turning over the engine until this little dot is in line with this little notch, and then that means that the crank is in time. And now we'll go up top and have a look at the timing mark on the cam. So our cam is timed up, our little circle's in line with our little notch up here, which means the engine is in time. So now we can detension the belt. Yeah, it's really difficult to show everything that's going on down there just because everything's so tight. There isn't enough room for my arm and the camera. Where there's some old gasket remaining on the surface of the engine, I need to scrape that off. There's a little bit down there, the black, and a little bit up here. So I'm just going to go along gently with a razor blade and cut that off. I'm happy with this level of cleanliness for the outside. Mating face of the gasket. There's a few little rust spots on there, but nothing that's going to stop this from sealing up nicely. Okay. Just want to spread this around a little bit. We don't want to have loads. I kind of use this more as an adhesive to stick the gasket on than I do as like a leak preventing measure. Just let the gasket do the work, that's what it's there for. Now we shall just put our gasket on the top. Now it's just time to bolt up the water pump. I'm sorry, but I think I might get in the way of the camera because I need to get down in here to fit the thing. There's no other place for the camera to go really. So, but essentially, just have a look from the outside. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 10mm bolts, and this one here is a bolt for the timing belt cover. So that's not actually one of the water pump bolts. It's the lower ones, the lower 5. All 10mm. Now that the water pump is fitted and it's bolted down and we've tightened it up, the next thing I'm going to do before I do anything else is fill it up with coolant and then pressure test the cooling system and make sure that we don't have any leaks before we go any further. If we contaminate the new belt, that would be a shame because you have to then buy another one. This is our new tensioner. It has this relief at the back with a slot so you can move the tensioner. The spring clips onto this side, and then there's a little nipple just above the stud, and that's what this here locates on, just a small little dowel. So we'll go ahead and get that fished in. Of course, I just dropped my torch into a bucket of liquid. That was awesome. There we go. Now what we'll do is just get the nut started. Don't forget there's a washer with this as well. Little washer and the nut. I'll let you figure out which way they go on. You just pop on the washer. I don't recommend reusing the old tensioner. This is the part number for the new spring tensioner, which you should definitely fit. I'm going to attempt showing how to fit the belt, but I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it. But I'll do my best. Let's try and go down underneath.
thought that might happen. So we're on the crank. Need to stay on the water pump. There we go. Okay then. So now the belt is on. We haven't applied the tensioner to it yet, so it's not tensioned, but it's on there. So now what we want to do is just go around the belt and make sure that our timing marks still line up, and if they do, we can tension it and reassemble. So as you can see, I'm bang on the cam. My timing mark lines up perfectly. And then also on the crank, my timing mark is also dead on. So the engine's in time, and now I can tension the belt. So the round part of the tensioner goes over, slots over this, and then there's a part of the spring that pushes into a little relief on here, and then after that you hook the long part of it onto this dowel down here, which also has a slot in it on the top. So you do need to make sure that you get the spring into the slots. And that's the cam belt fitted. So if you've got this far, you should easily be able to remember how to put the covers back on and such like. It's not very difficult, it's quite simple really to refit all that. And other than that, you just need to be careful if you are going to replace the cam belt that you also replace the tensioner and the spring with it as well. Get a good quality belt, don't get a cheap one. And that's it. This one here is actually pretty simple. It is tight for space, that's why it's hard to film, but all in all, pretty easy.